Welcome to Innovate and Conversate, where we discuss the latest innovations and trends in the business world. I'm your host, Jana, and today we're going to be discussing about business development in disruptive industries and emerging markets. With me today is Mr. James Khoury, Business Development Director at OMT. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. James.
Thank you for having me, Jana.
So, to start off, what does disruption really mean? Is it just about tech or is there more to it?
All right. So, disruption extends far beyond technology. Basically, it's a fundamental redefinition of how industries operate. Usually, it's driven by customer behavior, regulatory changes, economic pressures, and of course, innovative business models. So, technology is a catalyst for disruption. However, it's not the only factor. Usually, when companies decide to change their traditional approach and to challenge their long-standing assumptions, we start seeing disruption in the market. Take, for example, the fintech industry. We see that digital banks or wallets or blockchain is not the only disruption in the market, but also how customers perceive and expect to have instant and seamless financial transactions. So nowadays, banks are not only competing with other banks, but primarily with other fintechs because they have redefined the rules of engagement. And that's why change and technology they go hand in hand. So when companies decide not to adapt to change and fail in this aspect, then they are most likely prone to become obsolete with time.
So now that the concept of disruption is clear, what is the main role of business development departments when it comes to, especially in the challenges that our region is facing today?
Yeah. So a business development department sits as the strategic heart of an organization. So to compare it, it's like player number 9 in football, the scorer. Why? Because this department is in charge of growth. And when we say growth, we can split it across several verticals. So starting with maximizing the value out of the existing services and products, at the same time exploring strategic partnerships, developing new business lines, and of course exploring new markets. In addition to this, sometimes companies they seek to merge with other companies and also to acquire others, which is also known as non-organic growth. All of this should be done with a clear strategy on where the company is heading while keeping an eye on the regulatory changes and the competition and other socioeconomic factors. So I always say that business development is everybody's business. However, this department remains as the main enabler of growth. And if a company is seeking to not only survive, but also thrive in a dynamic work environment, especially in the ones that we have in our market, it's very important to invest in a strong business development department.
I definitely agree. So you've worked in Lebanon and Africa and GCC and other markets as well. So what's the key to crack success in every market?
Well, the beauty of business development is that it's not a science. So you don't like have major and university in business development. And that's why a one size key doesn't fit all the approaches. Therefore, it's very important to have a flexible mindset when dealing with expanding into new markets. And therefore, there are some common considerations whenever you want to expand, especially in emerging markets. One, it's very important to have deep understanding of the local diversity, the culture, and the regulatory framework of the country that the company is seeking to expand in. So, for example, Oman is still relationship driven a lot, whereas we see that Dubai and Riyadh they are more innovation centric. Lebanon, unfortunately, it's still on the resilience side. So, for example, when I was doing business development in Central Asia, I had to explain and demonstrate the what's in it for me for our local partner before even explaining to them what's the actual business that we want to promote. Even, for example, in Africa, one of the major challenges is to see how we can get the money out of Africa whenever we have a positive cash flow. So this is point number one, to have a deep and strong local understanding of the context. And number two, it's very important to have a well connected and trustworthy local partner. Why? Because you need to have a local partner who shares with you the same vision and understanding as well as values, which would facilitate and expedite your expansion into this market. Number three is proximity. So you rarely see like a company in GCC who suddenly decides to expand in Latin America.
Mhm.
Why? Because you need to always factor for the proximity in terms of commute, time difference, and other logistics expenses that you will bear due to distances. Last advice when it comes to expansion would be whenever you're seeking to grow in emerging markets, it's very important to invest gradually because this will hedge and mitigate all the possible macro risks that the company might be facing. Point number three is proximity. You rarely see like a company in GCC who suddenly decides to expand in Latin America, for example. Why? Because it's very important to factor for proximity, whether the commute or the time difference and other expenses that you will be bearing in case of these major geographical distances. Last but not least is it's always advisable for companies to invest gradually when it comes to emerging markets. Why? Because this will mitigate the potential macro risks that the companies might be facing, which are beyond their control.
And when it comes to technology, how can companies leverage technology to stay ahead of the curve, especially in the fintech industry?
Well, excellent question, Jana. You know, nowadays, utilizing technology is a must in almost every industry. So, in today's business world, it's not enough just to focus on establishing strategic relationship with your clients or simply offer them the most competitive prices. The most successful component is to be able to offer your clients the relevant value proposition, and this will never be met without leveraging technology. So, technology can be split into two verticals when it comes to business development. One is utilizing AI, automation, predictive analytics in order to capture value out of your data,
Mhm.
in order to foresee what are the customer's needs, to spot trends, and this will ultimately lead to improvement initiatives or even identifying opportunities in the market. Number two is that successful companies have realized that they always have to invest in R&D and introduce cutting edge technologies into their solution. Otherwise, they will become obsolete. And here we have a long list of international giants who failed to do so. For example, Kodak, BlackBerry, Nokia, and others. I can zoom in into the fintech words, and here I can relate to the company that I currently work for, which is OMT, Online Money Transfer. In order to stay above the curve, we decided to invest in our digital transformation. OMT is a leading financial service provider in Lebanon, and we decided to have our own mobile application. So today, through our mobile app, which is named OMT Pay, customers can use their digital wallet or OMT Visa card in order to transact instantly, whether by sending money, receiving money, or paying your bills, whether through the app or at any merchant.
That's amazing. And what would you say are the biggest mistakes that companies make when it comes to dealing with disruption?
Well, the most important lesson is that companies shouldn't be intimidated by market disruptions. Alternatively, they should use this unfavorable situation in order to fuel their creativity, and innovation in order to undertake all the needed corrective measures. So instead of companies to be, like, for example, reactive to the disruption in the market, it's highly recommended that they set a clear long term strategy, reposition themselves, clearly identify their targeted client segments, and start building momentum by tackling quick wins. So, aside from being reactive, another mistake would be to be rigid. So, successful companies embrace change as a constant. And this means that they always are looking to enhance their value proposition against any potential disruption.
Mhm.
I always challenge my team, what's our service 2.0? Because whatever we are doing today will become outdated 3 years down the line. Therefore, change should be a receptive environment in successful companies, and this requires across the level of staff, processes, systems, etc. The trick here is that companies cannot avoid market disruptions. However, what they can do is build the right ecosystem in order not to lose momentum whenever there is a market disruption.
And what would you say is the biggest shift that business development is going to see in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, clearly we're heading in a direction where business development will be deeply intertwined with technology, be it AI, IoT, robotics, also at the strategy level to have a digital first strategy. However, the secret sauce is to have the right balance between investing in technologies and such solutions while at the same time having a top notch team who is able to drive and promote the business and the services. Still in our industry and in our market, particularly, you still can't close a deal without the human touch.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Mr. James. This brings us to the end of the podcast. It's been a really fascinating discussion.
Likewise, thanks again, Jana.
Thank you to our listeners for tuning in. We'd love to hear back from you on which topics you would like for us to discuss next. Until next time, stay innovative and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.